Newsflash. If you too have felt assaulted by the onslaught of the Rose sample sale videos and yet confused by the recent brouhaha over the open letter that one of the most ardent fans turned foes wrote against the Roe, this is the deep dive for you, where we're going to discuss the psychology behind gatekeeping, bargain hunting, and perhaps most importantly, rejection. My name is Moshe Lundstrom-Halbert, and I'm a fashion and cultural journalist, and my credentials also include that I've participated in 2 Olsen interviews that have gone very wrong. At the end of this video, I'll share those stories because I think it's rather symbolic of the themes we'll be discussing here. Now, the Roe is very good at placing a number of barriers along its path towards purchase. The most significant one, of course, being price. And as they've really cultivated this kind of consumer, which considers themselves a connoisseur, but that cultivation requires them to buy into a brand that doesn't use obvious logos or demarcations to let you know that it's the Roe. It very much feeds into this idea of if you know, you know. Therefore, I think that's why we see a number of Roe consumers want to let you know it's the Roe. It's not enough for it to be a subtle, beautiful, thoughtful design. They need to tell you that it was the Roe in order to maintain that certain level of status that they are hoping will be affiliated with them and kind of have a waterfall effect via their affiliation with the Roe. Let's park that right there. It also really activates these natural human instincts around hard to get games and also hunting and gathering, which is simulated by this idea of bargain hunting, which the sample sales are. Very much turning consumers into animals in the wild, stalking their prey. And when they catch their prey, what we see in the form of these haul videos is really an expression of their dopamine after feasting on their crew necks and their cashmeres and their button downs. Economically speaking, the perception of a deal or a discount will often outweigh better judgment or true value. And for the Roe, while this type of content and the exposure of how much excess inventory they have might seem like a PR nightmare, it's actually a win-win for them if you think about it this way. One, they're selling a lot of these items technically for above what they wholesale for a lot of the times, so they're still making a lot of money on these sales. And then 2, it allows for them to weed out and very clearly distinguish between their true core customers that they want to focus on, their highest net worth individuals, and the riffraff that are more of their sample sale or occasional customers, not their VICs. And while I apologize if I just offended you by calling you Roe riffraff, no, actually, I'm not sorry. Because unless your name is Mary Kate or Ashley Olsen, you shouldn't make somebody else's brand your whole personality. Let that sink in for a second. You shouldn't make somebody else's brand your whole personality. Which brings me to the Roe creator collector extraordinaire Neelam Gill. Neelam is clearly very upset at what she views as a number of indiscretions by the Roe to stunt her getting recognition or access. And this is where I want to speak directly to you, Neelam. Hold your hand as my fellow Canadian gal. In fashion, we need to practice the law of detachment. What do I mean by that? Detachment from outcomes. If you love the Roe or any other brand for that matter, great. But expecting them to abide by your expectations around decorum and recognition and acknowledgement is just always going to end in tears. Take it from me, gatekeepers in this industry behind the scenes at all these brands have zero problem putting you in your place if you are a journalist, an influencer or content creator, or even a client if you do anything that they feel undermines their brand, or if simply you are making unreasonable demands. Part of my role as a journalist is pushing back on people like this while still maintaining a good professional standing, which can be a tricky balance sometimes. But if you are an influencer or a client or this newfangled type of content creator who turns being a client into a following, keep in mind the gatekeepers at these brands only care about 3 things. 1, your money. 2, having reputable journalists for on-brand outlets cover them. And then 3, working with and being affiliated with the top tier celebrity and talent. Everything else is just gravy. And the sooner you come to realize that, the better, the healthier, the more media literate. So now I'm going to tell you how I had 2 Olsen interviews earlier on in my career go very wrong and why it's relevant to this whole conversation. The first one occurred when I was a 21-year-old intern at Fashion Television, and the chief of staff for the Olsens tried to have me kicked off of set for an interview because I was corresponding with my producers back at the studio to let them know when I would be bicycling back across town in stilettos to return the tapes to them so it could make the evening news. Why? Because I think they took one look at me and realized that is an Olsen fangirl right there if I've ever seen one. I think they were concerned that I was leaking the location. 2, I was once assigned an interview in the Rose showroom just with Ashley when they had launched footwear. This was a footwear focused article, and I think she felt that talking just about shoes was a little bit beneath her because she spoke so quietly that my recorder could barely pick up what she was saying, which I think was a very clever sabotage tactic. Well played, Ashley. But thankfully for me, I was born with supersonic hearing, and I always make a point to make friends with the IT teams wherever I work who were able to extract the uber quiet audio. The fashion industry thrives on ego and control, which is why the most important thing to remember if you want to hack it is you can't take anything personally. And unless you own it, never make a brand your whole personality. That wraps your news, Fash. I'm Moshe Lundstrom. Be sure to stick with me to stay up to date on all things fashion.